So we're chatting Chief Sustainability Officer Strategy. If we can just go down the line and you introduce yourselves and a little bit who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today. If you want to get us started.
You skip me.
Yeah, we're going to go with you again. Yeah. Oh no, you've got to go again.
I do?
Yeah, in case we have anyone new in the room.
Oh. Hi everyone, I was here 5 minutes ago. And my name is Jenny and I'm the CSO PMI. I come from Switzerland, but I don't sound Swiss because I'm from Chile. And that's it, I think.
Yeah, brilliant, okay. Amazing.
Hello everyone, I'm Miguel Sossa-Mardomingo. I work at a wonderful company called Capgemini. I'm based in Seattle, and I have the distinct pleasure of working with many of you to help drive sustainability change throughout the world. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Jenny. When I was told that I was going to come and speak at this opportunity, a lot of my colleagues in ecosystem said, "You're going to speak with a tobacco company." How many of you raising your hands have seen the play Hamilton? You cannot create change if you're not in the room where it happens. And Jenny is here creating that change, so give her a round of applause, please. So looking forward to this conversation, and thank you all for taking your time to be here to discuss this critical topic.
So I'm Chelsea Lamar. I'm the Vice President of Global Sustainability with AIT Worldwide Logistics. AIT is a freight forwarder or a logistics service provider, so we're kind of in this interesting space where we're partnering with carriers as well as customers to bring sustainable transportation solutions to market in air, ocean, and ground globally. So it's transportation, all modes, everywhere. I wanted to talk about a couple examples of things we're working on, because I know this is a sustainability audience, but not necessarily a transportation audience. So one cool thing that we've been working on is long-haul, over-the-road EV moves with electric semi-tractors. So we're doing over 1,000 miles going from New York all the way to Iowa regularly on a Class 8 EV. The second thing I wanted to note was we just put out a press release last week about a partnership that we have with Cargolux, the airline, as well as Microsoft to purchase a whole bunch of sustainable aviation fuel. So sustainable aviation fuel is jet fuel that's made from renewable resources like used cooking oil. So they're gathering up all of the cooking oil from like the fast food restaurants, processing it into jet fuel, and you're able to use that in a plane today. That deal is going to result in 66,000 metric tons of carbon reduction. And then finally, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the home delivery space for sustainability, and we work with like consumer goods retailers in order to do deliveries on EVs. Last year we did 30,000 home deliveries on electric vehicles like light and medium duty vans. So there's a lot happening in this space. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Great. My name is Bachir, and I lead our sustainability advisory services at Arcadis in North America. I'm based out of New Jersey, and Arcadis overall is an engineering and design and consulting firm where we're integrating and bringing sustainability into our services and projects overall. Eager to be part of this conversation. Some of the key initiatives we've led internally within the company is focusing on our commitments and targets across the environmental and social impacts, particularly around carbon. We have scope 1 and 2 and 3 targets that are SBTI approved, and also we're focusing a lot on our project impact and really figuring out how to measure the carbon emissions from our projects, but also the other environmental impacts, and how do we actually reduce that across the board. So that's something we're really excited about and seeing growth and big momentum around. Eager to be part of this, and we'll send it back to you, Charlie.
Brilliant. Thank you all for joining us. For anyone who is just joining us in the room or online, at some point later on, if I ever stop talking, we will go to questions from the audience. So if you're joining us online, please do pop them and they will come straight to me here. If you're joining us in the room, we'll come to you a little bit later. But for now, let's chat context. So using CSO maybe more as an umbrella term to sort of mean sustainability leader, how does the modern CSO position themselves in a business to achieve maximum impact? Miguel, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So you all have been sitting a bit, so you'll help me. If you are able to, I'm going to ask this side of the room to stand. If you're able to, keep standing. Keep standing. If you can stand, keep standing. Keep going. Standing here in the middle a little bit. Keep going. I'm going to do a rough math. Keep going up to the wonderful person in the green shirt. Stop there. You all represent the 70% of CSOs that report to a CEO or a board. You may now sit. Why is this important? When I meet with CEOs who tell me, I don't have power, I don't have authority, bullshit. 70% of you work with CEOs and are appointed by the board. I hope that's true with you too.
I report to the CFO.
You see? We'll take it, C-suite.
I chose it.
Oh, I like that.
I'll make the case after.
You're making it closer. So if you look at what Jenny is saying, you have the ear. And I think one of the common challenges that CSOs have is that you are saying, well, okay, I don't have resources. I have a team of 2, if I'm lucky, maybe 3, and I have to go do things. But CSOs are no longer a cost center. And I want to dispel that myth today. I don't think you're a cost center. I think you actually are driving profitability. So at Capgemini, we are working with CSOs to say, do you know that when you make sustainable decisions, your products command 2 to 3 times more price points? Do you know that when you engage your employee base, 75% of them want to be part of what you're doing? So I would say, when going back to your question, we are here engaging today in conversations. No longer needs to be the bad word S, sustainable, needs to be talking about profitability and business value. There is no difference today than what you've been doing 10, 15, 20 years, all of us that have been in this space a bit longer with gray hair or otherwise. It is just that we have to change the vocabulary of what we're discussing. And I'll end by saying I was giving a talk at Harvard a couple of weeks ago, the day after President Trump said, I'm going to take away your funding. And someone in the audience said, Miguel, would you be able to pitch sustainability to President Trump? And while I'm fearful because I know this is being recorded, I would simply ask him, without using the word sustainability, are you worried about Mar-a-Lago being flooded? And if so, I have a solution for you. So you have the power in your hands to create change for businesses from tobacco, logistics, and building. We can do it together. We may have to change the way that we talk about it, but I have faith in the 70% that are talking to that C-suite. Get in their ear. You have the ability to do it. So I hope that's a good answer.
Incredible.
That was great.
Chelsea, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I think it's, it's all about your value proposition. And I can give a couple examples of this. So prior to the role I was in now, I worked for a company called Raise Holdings. They're a huge transportation distribution company. They're McDonald's biggest distributor, Coca-Cola's largest distributor, the United States' biggest beer distributor. Huge real estate portfolio, one of the largest private fleets in the US. And I led sustainability there. And what was effective for that particular business was, they had capital, they wanted to invest it in order to increase the value of their assets. It's so let's focus on that. Energy efficiency, it's a no-brainer when you have a utility bill that's $30 million every year. Looking at solar in markets where there's good interconnection laws, where there's good incentives, again, you're gonna get that ROI, you're gonna increase your resiliency, you're gonna increase, just the overall stability of the grid. That was easy to do. We did a whole lot of it. And then there's also good applications of electric vehicles where you're running the vehicles a lot of miles all the time. That's what drives down the TCO. So that was what I was focused on there. Contrasting that with what I'm doing today at AIT, we are a sales-based organization. We sell logistics services. And I'm curious to hear from Jenny about why she wanted to report to the CFO, because that's not where I want to be. Definitely want to be within the sales and operations of our org, because that's what's driving it. And we're able to use sustainability as a differentiator in our conversations with customers. We work with a lot of technology customers, with pharmaceutical customers, with luxury goods customers that have these really ambitious goals. They're looking for a logistics service provider that can provide them sustainable transportation solutions. We are able to do that, and that gets a lot of play within the org. So yeah, I think that's the overall overall top level from me is just like, what's your value prop, and then move forward.
Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that all these great input. I mean, in my perspective, obviously, that role, whether it's CSO or called something else, obviously reporting up to executive leadership is important, but also being that change enabler, right? Like being the actor of change and not just focusing on compliance, but also on innovation and business transformation. That's where I'm seeing like more of the value proposition that you're referring to, right? So in the sense of how do you enable that change within the company, and how do you pivot the role from being just a silo of, hey, we're responsible for reporting or targets or metrics, into that business transformation and integration of these sustainability issues across the strategy, right? So we've recently supported a global financial company in decarbonizing their real estate portfolio and helping them develop a roadmap to get there. And it ties a lot to what Chelsea and Jennifer, you were referring to earlier, in the sense of the KPIs and the responsibilities and the change management that needs to happen to enable the delivery of this can be driven by that role, by the sustainability leader, the CSO leader, but it has to be the responsibility of the different functions. And that's really the opportunity for the CSOs to elevate themselves and to enable that. And so defining clear responsibilities, defining incentives, and integrating these KPIs into the business incentives, I see where there's also a lot of opportunity for CSOs to shine in order to create that accountability across the business. Yeah.
Okay, so Jenny, I am going to come to you, but I think first of all, a question for the panel: who do you report into? Before we hear Jenny's point on the CFO.
I report to the Chief Development Officer.
Chief Development Officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sit within the advisory business, and I report to our resilience business area. But within Arcadis, the sustainability team reports up to the chief financial officer as well. And there is a committee that is focused on non-financial reporting, and that's where the bigger play is tied to the finance organization. Yeah.
I report to the head of the Americas, who's giving a keynote later today, Saul Salinas. So hi, Saul. And then Saul reports in through our group to our CEO globally. So that's how important we take it at Capgemini. We even have a goal that we have to help our clients reduce their carbon footprint by 10 million tons by 2030. That is in my KPIs. That determines whether I put food on the table or not. So it is serious and something that we drive.
Okay, so Jennifer.
I'll pitch it.
Yeah,
and then,
go on, go.
And then I'll ask people to stand up. So I report to a CFO. In our company, the CFO is accountable for strategy, finance, and sustainability, which is a very nice combination. And I took over this role 5 years ago, and I asked to report to the CFO, partly for what I was explaining before. I think that the way that I think about sustainability or non-financial performance, it's in an integrated way. And so when you're working for, especially a company like ours, that is a multinational company present in 160 countries, more than 80,000 employees, finance in any organization, but particularly in multinationals, builds the skeleton and the system in which the company operates. And so for me to really embed sustainability, I needed to be as close as possible to the system so that I could stretch them enough that we could fit sustainability and non-financial performance into strategy building, into strategy management, into resource allocation, into measurement. And in order to do that properly, you were talking about conversations about where is value creation, what is resilience, what is risk mitigation, what is compliance, where is competitive advantage. In order to be able to have those conversations, you need to have good quality data that can be at par with financial data, that you can use it for engagement, for decision making internally and also externally. And so the more that I could create synergies with different departments of finance internally, so everything that is managing cost, planning, forecasting, but also externally, investor relations, treasury, credit, you would build robustness into strategy building for sustainability performance, sustainability measurement, sustainability reporting, creating more comparability, more reliability, and eventually have the possibility to have all of this information externally assured, which is more or less where we're today, specifically in Europe. So yeah, that's why. That's why I chose the CFO, and I love him. The other thing I wanted to say that is really important, if I have permission, is that I think that when Chelsea was talking about where she worked before and where she works today and creating the distinctions, I think that what is key for sustainability to really matter and matter to everyone, besides and beyond the governance, besides and beyond putting systems in place to having good quality data, is materiality. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we talk enough about materiality that is really the core of building a sound strategy, because there's millions of ESG issues, but not all ESG issues are created equal. Mm-hmm. For me, my most material ESG issue is the health impact of the product that I sell, and my entire strategy is focusing on that. That is not the same for you. That is not the same for you for the company that you worked before. That is not the same for you. That is not the same for you. And so the more that a strategy can be tailored to where your negative externalities are, where you as a company can allocate resources to have meaningful impact that can be measured and eventually monetized, the more cohesive your strategy becomes, and then it makes more sense to talk about sustainability, not as this like standalone path that any company follows, but really in an integrated way. That's why I report to CFO.
Brilliant.
Should I ask people to stand up?
I'm really you're talking and I'm thinking about what can I ask so that people stand up. In my next
Be
panel.
prepared. You're all going to be asked to do all sorts of things.
No, next time.
Okay, so linking that, in your roles, how do you balance short-term financial goals with long-term sustainability objectives? Because I feel like a lot of sustainability leaders are having to manage incredibly long-term goals versus actually far shorter-term goals in the financial and the other offices. Chelsea, do you want to start us with that?
So I feel like I don't have to do that within logistics. I think that there's a lot of really great technologies and efficiencies that have immediate payback. So an example of this, we have a customer who wanted to, make their supply chain more sustainable. So they first took a look at how they were shipping things, and it was all on air transportation. And then they looked to see, where do we have steady need? Where can we shift to moving some things with ocean? Air compared to ocean on a per ton, mile, or kilometer basis, it's about 1/30th of the emissions, 1/30th to 1/50th of the emissions to go from air to ocean. So there's already this huge emission savings, and then it's also a fraction of the cost. So they were able to take this chunk of their freight, move it from air to ocean, and then use those savings, those cost savings, to then buy sustainable aviation fuel, to buy sustainable marine fuel, to pay the green premium that it takes to ship with EV in some jurisdictions. So I think that there's just a lot there related to route optimization, related to mode shift, just the efficiency of transportation that still exists today. And if you have a supply chain and you haven't took a look at your transportation costs and the modes and the geographies, it's a really good idea to do so, because I think that you will be able to still find some low-hanging fruit, and then potentially use that to then finance some of the newer technology or fuels that you might need to pay the premium for. So that's my perspective.
Michelle?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's very important to kind of balance that integrated thinking that you're referring to, Chelsea, in terms of not looking at it from a short-termism of I need to deliver an energy efficiency project or the low-hanging fruits and move on. You need to kind of balance that and keep on the longer-term perspective, but then how do you leverage this short-term thinking to keep moving forward, right? So a lot of that can manifest in different ways, either in setting more interim targets and sort of working incrementally to achieving your longer-term goals, but then bringing back sort of what does it take to get to this long-term, short-term versus long-term, and being creative in the solutions of financing, internal considerations for financing, and taking different approaches of looking into the impact, not just from a short-term financial, but also co-benefits and ways of reviewing your programs and projects to integrate different benefits that could affect your business, but also affect the people and the society around you. So that's where I think it's important to consider that. And I like the thinking you're bringing. It's like start with what is easier to achieve, but keep leveraging that towards longer term planning and thinking. Yeah.
Jenny?
I think that the short answer is with interim targets and goals. So a lot of the things that we're trying to achieve in sustainability, I don't know, carbon neutrality or net zero, they're obviously going to hopefully be achieved in the next 10, 15 years. So how do you define success in the short term is really up to you in terms of having a curve. And I think decarbonization is actually a good example because irrespective of where you're working on, this is the area of sustainability that is most mature in terms of quantification and qualification, and where there is more expertise in terms of visualizing it and reporting on it. So when we're all talking about our carbon neutral goals or our net zero goals, we're still reporting progress, I don't know, on a yearly basis, and then every so often talking about interim goals of absolute reductions every shorter period of time. And I think it's important because also if you're putting programs in place and allocating resources for these long-term goals, how do you know if they're being successful or not? You don't want to reach 2040 and then realize, oh no, we failed. You want to have the agility and the possibility to pivot and reallocate resources into different initiatives and key initiatives that maybe are not being as successful as you wanted to. So it's very important to have that measurement and to have those interim targets and goals, even if they're just internal, by the way. Because when we see many companies talking about these long-term targets and goals, many times they are long-term, but that doesn't mean that companies don't have short-term goals and targets just for internal North Star setting so that you can understand the direction you want to go to. So I don't think that there's such thing as like that compromise of like long-term, short-term. I think that it's all part of that continuum. You just choose to tell the story with this long-term North Star. And for internal purposes, for your strategic building, you have the interim targets on how you're defining success in the short term.
Miguel?
So we work with a lot of CSOs. I was working with a technology company CSO a while back, and they, again, had their 2030 ambition, and they're trying to figure out how to justify it, right? How do we get the funding to do it? So we spend time with them. We've developed software to calculate the ROI of their particular projects, but whether it's low-hanging fruit or not, again, my hypothesis and our hypothesis are that CSOs are not a cost center, sustainability is not a cost center. And if we look at it that way, we sat down and we talked about energy and transport. We were able to identify $3-4 million over the course of a couple of week workshop. They're using that funding that they've articulated as sustainability-driven led savings to fund some of the programs that they want to go take. So again, for those of you that are struggling behind the how do I keep my program running or how do I go ask for a bit of money, let's talk, because you likely can do things, whether it's working on transportation decarbonization or energy decarbonization or moving from Excel. How many of you track data in Excel? Yeah, don't be shy, I get it. How do we move from Excel to digital services where we can utilize AI to help you reduce that load, right? So there are ways that we look at the CSO sort of timeline to say, let's not try to justify your job for the next 3 months. I think, Michelle was talking about short-termism. How do we help make it so that you have an arc, there's a plan, there's a financial way of getting there, everyone's on board from the CFO down. But that takes time when you're a team of 2 or a team of 3. So you're not alone, we're here, let's talk about how we can do that.
Yeah, I would also add to that the importance of, when you're thinking short term is also that scenario planning, right? So recognizing that, yes, I need to hit a certain target by 2040, 2050, and you evaluate your programs and your projects, but there are different ways you can get there, and that's important also for future planning to consider these different scenarios, because as a business, you may be driven by different factors. Is it finance? Is it that, the cost of implementation is a big factor? Is it the speed of implementation? Is it the complexity of the project? So you can evaluate different scenarios that will help you get there, and that we found that to be very successful with leadership and with executives to kind of balance the decision and to help them choose a pathway of which way to go to. And continuously evaluate progress, as Jennifer, you were noting earlier, right? So that transparency around, even at a minimum internally, but even more so important externally, the transparency around how you're progressing towards what you're getting to, and reevaluating on a regular basis is very important.
Brilliant. Well, I feel like if there's one thing I've learned about this room so far today is I'm not going to leave it too long before I go to questions. But I do have one more to sneak in before we go to the audience, and that's just shouting about some successes, right? You guys work so hard every day to implement these sustainability strategies. Can I just have an example from everyone about something you're really proud of, a success, something that's really paid off? Michelle, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, there are different examples, I would say. I would prioritize, like successes around combining the strategy and the technical aspect with the change management when we're delivering support to our clients. So it's not just about, hey, here's a plan, here's ROI, here's the list of projects, and here's your target, but really what should be the responsibility of every group and function within the organization, and building in that change management and that governance as part of any forward-looking plan in order to enable better integration. I think that has accelerated the implementation and enabled also moving from just a strategy and a plan into starting to deliver, right? So defining clear responsibilities, clear KPIs, and tying sustainability objectives into performance and incentive metrics, not just at the executive or the board level, but also at the functional director level, I think is very important, and I see a lot of value in that, yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on is like the power of collaboration within our industry. So one project that we're a part of is the I-10 Consortium. So it's a project to build heavy duty charging infrastructure on the I-10 going from El Paso to LA. And it's a big undertaking, but like the folks that are working on this, it's us, DB Schenker, DHL, Microsoft, PepsiCo, IKEA, Interlux, like lots of really big name companies who have said this is a big freight lane for us and we want to prioritize like getting this built. And like I'm on calls every month with this group, like big group of stakeholders, and we're talking about how to, build a heavy duty charging infrastructure in the United States, which will totally transform the way we do transportation in that area of the country. So, and that collaboration, I don't really think happens necessarily in other areas. Like, I don't know that I would be on calls with DHL, Robinson, Schenker, sort of like my biggest freight forwarder competitors outside of the sustainability work. But it's, we're really able to share a lot of great ideas and like try and do this like creative thinking that's definitely required to get these projects done that have never been done before, so.
Three quickly. So the first one is we've seen in our professional services industry a lot of people shifting away from DEI and from sustainability. I'm very proud that Capgemini, knock on wood, has continued to invest and to support and to allow us to be up here talking about it. So I'm just proud at a company level for that. Secondly, again, as a preview for the keynote from Saul Salinas, that we're embracing net positive. So how do we move beyond? Should our businesses be embracing a way to give back more than what we're taking, and working with great folks like Mary from Taza and others to help drive that forward? And then I think just for me personally, I've only been at Capgemini a year and a half, but seeing the way that we have embedded sustainability into the minds of our sales executives as not just what is this cool thing about planting a tree, to actually how do we drive business forward, and that sort of mind shift, it's just personally gratifying to see the work that we're doing to help our clients do that. So that's what I'm proud of for Cap.
Maybe connected, I'm just thinking with what I can say quickly. Connected to what I was sharing earlier when it was just uni. So more than 42% of our revenues come from our new products now. And so in less than 10 years of transforming our company, in less than 10 years of announcing that we want to really make cigarettes obsolete, you have already 42% coming from these new products. And maybe it seems like a lot, or maybe it doesn't, but think about any other company that has committed to transforming anyway. And you will not be able to find any company that is transforming at this pace and scale anywhere, unless they're divesting their business, right? But this is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like selling your coal or your fossil fuels and then becoming green. It's really about transforming and reducing the number of smokers so that this issue really disappears. That's one. And the other one that for me, we didn't talk about, and I just want to share it because I think it's relevant when we think about incentives and how companies think about sustainability and integrating into strategy. 30% of our long-term compensation is linked to sustainability performance. So this means that the organization is working towards that, but it also means that it has a very stringent level of scrutiny, ensuring that certain KPIs are linked to comp. Means that they need to be strategic to the business because you are putting resources, attention of teams, and time dedicated to advancing certain environmental and social issues. You need to be very clear about how these are contributing to your business, especially if you're a publicly listed company. And so the fact that 30% of our long-term comp is really linked to sustainability talks about how the organization understands sustainability as a key lever for innovation and growth.
Incredible. So, any questions in the room? If you have a question, if you want to pop your hand straight up, are you going over there first? Perfect. So Tom's going to bring a microphone around. If you could just start by introducing yourself, where you're from, and then going into the question, please.
Good afternoon. Is this on? Thank you for your time. My name is Alex Ablamonitz. I'm a head of strategy and sales for Green Cities Accord. At Green Cities Accord, we foster climate resilient communities by increasing urban tree canopy. So we plant trees and then we sell carbon credits to help organizations offset their carbon emissions. So thanks for your time. Question for each one of you. Could you tell me, maybe quantify it on a scale from 1 to 10, how much are voluntary carbon markets part of the net zero strategy for your organizations? And Miguel, maybe you can kind of like sum up your clients for me.
Sure. So the good thing about being a professional services is we don't have a lot that we have to do, right? So we have to basically travel is the majority of our scope 3, and we have data centers. But Dr. James Roby, Stuart Little, who comes from voluntary carbon market, have been very focused on removals. We just announced our recommitment to carbon offsets. I come from the VCM market at Climate Impact Partners previously. So it is a powerful tool, and for anyone that says, oh, you're just offloading, yeah, but like, do we want to wait 30 years and see what happens, or do we want to take action now while we change? So Capgemini is about taking action, investing in climate tech, looking at battery storage and other solutions alongside of carbon. But thank you for doing what you do.
From my perspective, 96% of our emissions are in our transportation moves that we do for customers, and so that's our focus related to decarbonization. We're not really active in like nature-based carbon offsets or other types of technologies like those. Not that they aren't important, but it's not part of our strategy just because we're really focused on insetting versus offsetting. And so we're buying like sustainable aviation fuel to offset our travel emissions. We're buying like e-fuels to offset our ocean container emissions. Like we're trying to spend the money in the technologies that are actually the emissions affecting our business. So.
Yeah, I mean, at Arcadis overall, yeah, we do have SBTi approved targets, and so we follow, in general, the guidance from there, but we have relied on carbon offsets to neutralize emissions in the past, and we're continuing to evaluate the cost, honestly, of like long-term, where is the market going, what are the prices, and then also alignment with SBTi, especially with the new draft guidance on corporate standards. Similarly, like among our clients, it's a similar discussion. Where are the biggest emission sources, and to what extent can they decarbonize through insetting, or can they rely on removals? And when will that would removals and carbon offsets be used as a transition product towards enabling them to focus more on insetting and prioritize, projects once the technologies and the prices. So it's a little bit of a strategic tool as well to think about how do you actually move forward with as part of planning for long term. Yeah.
So we do rely on voluntary carbon markets. Our strategy is first about reducing energy consumption first, relying on renewable energy second, and then compensating what is unavoidable. So this is where offsetting or insetting or carbon credits play a role. I am a big fan of nature-based solutions. We know that over many, 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 many years that we have invested into technologies for carbon capture and sequestration, they still represent a tiny, tiny, tiny part. And we know that nature has the most beautiful and efficient solutions to sequester the CO2 emissions that we're all producing. That's one part. And the other is that an environmental strategy for any company is not complete with just reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Biodiversity and protecting nature play perhaps the most important part. You can reduce emissions as much as you want, but if you're not protecting nature and natural ecosystems, then we are all lost. And so the beauty of nature-based solutions, the beauty of offsetting or investing in carbon credits or insetting. We try to do insetting as much as possible, just because from a regenerative perspective, it makes more sense when you have agriculture in your supply chain, especially because it's serving multiple purposes. And I think that that's a beauty when you're talking about the cost of sustainability, when you can put solutions in place that are holistic solutions. So it's not just about greenhouse gas emission reduction, but really tackling the environmental impact that you have. So by doing that, you're also preserving nature, protecting biodiversity, removing the risk of deforestation, ensuring that you prevent soil degradation. Then your approach is much more sophisticated and comprehensive. So it is a very important part of our strategy, but I also think it cannot be the only part, right? You first need to make sure that your operations are running in a way that is as efficient as possible, so you're conscious of the energy that you use. Then second, that you can switch to renewable energy as much as you can, but then recognize that where we're today, there's certain emissions that are unavoidable. And so the ability to abate those with nature-based solutions, in our opinion, is our first priority.
We are seeing a lot of our clients asking for biodiversity strategies and looking for how they can actually measure that. So exactly as you're saying.
And then you have science-based targets for nature that are coming in. So our company, is my microphone on? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Please, if you don't hear me, tell me. Science-based targets for nature coming in with the ability to introduce science-based targets for nature. It's difficult to measure. The challenges are different with greenhouse gas emissions. Our company has done quite a bit of pilots on forest, on water, on biodiversity. We're by no means the only company, but we're one of the few companies. So if anybody's interested, you can check our website. On purpose, we have been quite granular in describing measurement, how we do it, and also what are the challenges in terms of building biodiversity strategies that are robust, that align with the Montreal framework, that have the right KPIs. If you think about nature and biodiversity versus carbon, it's just starting, right, in terms of maturity. So I believe, and this is related to the question that I was asked before, in terms of collaboration, that the more that we can put out there information of what are the challenges that we are encountering, what is the cost of putting these strategies in place, how can you build synergies between biodiversity and decarbonization, then the more that we can contribute in general for other companies to do the same. So please check, and if you have questions, you know where to find me.
Again, I'm so sorry, but we're not going to have time for any more audience questions, but I'm going to be cheeky and get one last one in. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to challenge you to keep this down to a minute or less. Advice for other leaders. Where is there the most scope to make sustainability progress? We've already gone through a lot of the low-hanging fruit. What are you attacking next? Where can you make the most difference in a minute or less? Michelle, do you want to get us started?
Yeah.
Minute or less.
I think obviously widening the lens and going into your value chain is probably the area where the largest impact for most organizations is, and really focusing on that collaboration and engaging your supply chain in particular, but it could be even downstream with your customers or on your product impact. So thinking about that, thinking about how do you scale, and also what strategies and plans. Is it starting with data and getting better data, or all the way into building programs and plans and engaging more actively with those different groups across the value chain? Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think just start. I think that oftentimes there's like a lot of effort put into like making sure that the data is all correct, and that's a really important aspect of it. But we know that there's so much to do. Maybe the data doesn't need to be 100% perfect for you to go ahead and take action. And really practically for those folks that have transportation supply chains, it's like, if you are doing short haul movements in Southern California that has cost parity with diesel, you should be doing that on EV. California, the Netherlands, you should be using renewable diesel. You should be talking to your logistics service providers or looking internally at where you can leverage some operational efficiency. I think that transportation tends to be sort of last on the list for a lot of companies because it is a little bit more difficult, but it's like anybody can do easy stuff. I think we as our sustainability professionals, we get to do the hard thing. So just get going.
Great start, I like that. Again, building on Michelle for the value chain, 80% up to is where your emissions come from. We've seen success with large companies that are able to call their supply chain in to have workshops to talk about where they are. But I will leave you with this. Be clear on what you want. It is really hard for your supply chain to do anything if you keep moving things around. So just be clear, and that comes from setting a very good commitment, being thoughtful about it. Don't wait too long. We don't have a long time, folks. But just be clear, try to help your value chain understand what you want, and then give them a pathway to do so.
I think I said it before. Do I still have time?
Yeah.
I think I said it before. I think that the opportunity to become strategic and build that discipline that I think all sustainability professionals have been waiting for, that the huge challenge that we have in terms of the cost of sustainability, in terms of regulation, in terms of becoming so politicized, it's a huge opportunity also. Because it's an opportunity to really think deeply about how do you redefine business success in a way that takes all of these things into consideration without it becoming a binary exercise where you need to compromise growth and profit in order to not destroy the planet. You can actually do both. You can have a business model that is successful but is also respectful of environmental and social boundaries, and I think that's where the opportunity lies.
Incredible. I mean, some amazing advice there. Thank you so much for joining us. We're now going to go to a networking break. We'll come back here at 12:10 for a keynote from Microsoft's Rosa Chang Claro. So enjoy your networking break, and in the meantime, a round of applause for our panelists here, please.